Denise Carolan, Head of Organisational Development, part of the HR team at HTB.
I'm Erica, I'm the Facilities Lead here at HTB.
So I know we're going to talk about wellbeing, which
Yes.
has been kind of a big driver for us here at HTB, and I know something that employees have had some great feedback from our engagement survey in wanting more support in wellbeing, but also in our engagement initiatives. So I suppose, when we think about wellbeing and that sort of support network and communities, that's really, really key. For me, I suppose when I was considering this as a topic, I thought actually there's a community in the workplace, but also a personal community. And certainly for me, as some background, I'm of Irish descent, so grew up in...
Same.
Oh!
half.
Although parents who are Irish came to London, I was born in London, so of Irish, as part of a London Irish community, as they describe us. But that for me was important for me growing up, because it's really that your identity, that self of belonging, acceptance. So going to things like going to Catholic school, going to mass, all these things.
I did the same things actually.
All the things that you might, growing up, you want to fit in. So it's, important that you can identify with others that do these things and not feel that you're being judged or a bit different for doing so. So I definitely see that as a really important, shaping of myself when I grew up. And then in the workplace, in the same way, identifying with others and people that you feel that are around you to help with that sense of well-being. How do you see your communities that support you?
I'd say very similar. I remember being younger, because I'm half Filipino and half Irish. I went through a bit of a identity crisis, to say, where I didn't really knew where I belonged, because I was always more in touch with my Irish side, because I was close with my dad and his family, and then moving on to school, I had a sense of community with a lot of Filipino friends and a lot of Asian descent friends. So in primary school, when I got to see more cultures and also a lot of people from my own culture in the Filipino side, there was a sense of belonging and identity, and I was able to find myself. And it's similar, like translates into the workforce, where I think when I first started, I was temping on reception, so I was kind of scared I got to a point where I was very comfortable outside of the main office and was scared to come into it. But then when I changed into this role now, and making more friends and having that just sense of like support and friendship, it helped me kind of like come out of my shell and that sense of belonging.
Change Network's a new initiative for us, but born out of our International Women's Day last year, which was a great success. And it sort of felt like it forged itself really we are looking to extend it, but obviously women initially who wanted to come together and make change. Have you felt that in your role?
I have. I felt that it's been a big help for me, actually, because I think even with the EDI calendar that me and Amy created, so having the Change Network, for me especially, it's helped making these events and these initiatives more impactful, because you can do more with more resources. So it helps have groups like that has helped me in my role, and knowing that we have wellbeing champions now. I know there's a lot of people that joined it. Were they all volunteers, or did they
completely volunteers? We'd proposed wellbeing champions to our GEC. It was a new initiative, something that we hadn't done at HTB before, but we believe that this was to really support self-care in the workplace and linked to psychological safety, so that people could really feel like they were able to speak up and feel supported to do so. So they entirely, we had in the end 18 people, and we weren't sure, you never know. So it was great that people did. And some really lovely stories that, where people came together, as you will recall, sharing, whether it's their own kind of personal experiences or done this in a previous role, or they tend to be the person who naturally nurtured their own team or supported their manager when perhaps they felt people were not a-okay. But I think it's been a great initiative. I think self-care is really important. I think there's been probably a lot of, in it back in the day, performance and driving hard performance, was probably more of the kind of in vogue terms to use. I mean, actually, I'm reading a book at the moment called Momentum and Unlocking Potential. And there's, interestingly, a whole chapter on self-care, which I think, if you think back, I certainly, when I started my career, that wouldn't have featured. But now we know that, driving hard performance or high performance can lead to burnout. So that self-care element is really key.
To recharge.
Indeed, exactly. And that was where our Wellbeing champions had 2 days or 2 half days of training, and that was really to look at the signs, to support them, to feel like people were supported in their roles when we all kind of work busily away, but it's important, if we're not looking out for ourselves, which was a big theme from the training, then we can't look after others. So that's really
I want to say,
so just making sometimes those small changes, a bit like the daily habits we have, brushing our teeth every day, we don't really think about it. So self-care in the same way, just taking time out.
What kind of self-care things that you like to do to kind of like recharge? And
good question. I think really making sure that you take breaks. I think it's all quite, actually this book talks about it, some of it's very simple tips, more sleep, eat well, and taking time out for yourself, in whether that's refocusing. And I think sometimes if you're busy at your desk, it's important to take that time.
Even out. Just like comfort breaks, just do a lap around the office, get a coffee, say hi to someone. How do you think we can, as a business, promote self-care, or even, because we are more on the topic of International Women's Day, encourage self-care for women and prioritizing women-related needs?
I think in the last year, it's been much more of a focus for us as a bank and across the board. So it should be. I think it's really important to kind of not have these subjects as taboo, or feel like in the workplace, you're here to work and let's not talk about periods, which is probably certainly a generation I came from, or even at school, don't talk to men about that. But it's a big part of our life being at work. So we've done a lot of work, as I've mentioned, and specific initiatives to support female health. So we launched the menopause package last year, which was a part of our private medical, and we took the proposal to our executive group, and at the time they were all male leadership group, and for our female GC member joined, and actually it was a good turning point for me, where I was seeing men talk openly about supporting women in the menopause in the boardroom, which you wouldn't probably always see, and they were very wanted to support and invest in female health. So that was kind of where the support package came from. So women can receive the consultation package and testing, etc. But also as part of that launch, we offered up a morning coffee and chat, we called it, and we had a lot of women that came forward and really, which again is good, because that's difficult, to kind of put your hand up and say, I am, I'm not always struggling, but I'm going through this experience. And there was some really great conversations and that support network for each other, because it's not just the physical symptoms, but actually quite a lot of the women were talking about the brain fog and how for them in particular they were really feeling knocked their confidence, because they were concerned about the reflection that might have on their performance. So it's really important that women do feel like they can talk to a manager, or particularly a male manager, about these issues. For periods and menstrual cycle, hoping that that's not such an issue anymore, but young women being able to speak to their male manager saying that they're struggling. I was reading an article, like 7 in 10 women have suffered from symptoms that have really impacted their roles when it comes to their monthly cycle, and half of that to the point where they've really felt they've had to call in sick as a result. So, you know, it impacts a huge amount of women. I think we can all relate to that and remember the times when, you know, it's been really tough. But you're expected to sort of get on with it, as well as juggle the sort of, you know, wanting to be perceived as professional and being able to
I've definitely had those kinds of experiences where it was one day that I wanted to just like not go to work because it was just so painful. I was very scared to like come openly ask my boss, I'm just having, you know, really bad period pains. I need to take the day off, because I thought it's kind of like, oh, like you said, like, oh, you need to get on with it. Just, you know, it's not that big of a deal. Everyone goes through it. So having that, even just like how we're opening up with menopause, it's a great like leap into all the topics. And supporting women. So it's great to see that we've already started to put the foot forward with those kind of things. Indeed, and then we also have, you know, even like little things in the bathroom that we've got the quiet room where people can take comfort breaks and lie down, things like that.
So our managers as well, I mean, we've done lots of education for our managers, and I think sometimes, you know, to be honest, it's really, I don't want to raise it, I don't want to feel like I'm being, you know, too overly sensitive to them, but actually the education is around what these symptoms look like. I mean, if you take the menopause, you know, to say that actually this is obviously a natural course of life, and it is to kind of talk about it more broadly, and the impacts and support if someone is maybe struggling from brain fog or you know, symptoms of changes in their body temperature. But also we've had Bank Workers charity who we partner with, and they do some great webinars as well, and really bringing these subjects to the forefront. And we've had a real mix of attendance as well, like male and female, which is great. And March we've got International Women's Day, obviously lots of series of activity, but we're having the menstrual cycle as a wellbeing webinar to again raise that subject. But yeah, there's many other ways we can do and we will be doing. So in your role, Erica, you I know you do a wonderful job of the health and safety for particularly our female colleagues who are pregnant, and risk assessments as well. I mean, through that process, do you hear from them that they feel supported by HDB and their managers in the workplace?
I definitely would say that. One of the questions that I would ask is things like around like flexible working. Does your hours need to be reviewed or changed, or do you have places in the office where you can have comfort breaks, things like that? I've always been like, if there's nothing else if there isn't anything that I've said in like a question that I've asked, if you want to bring that up. So I try to make it a very safe space as well. From all of the risk assessments I have done so far, I've gotten the same response. My hours have already been reviewed, or I have got flexible working hours arranged with my manager. So it's a really good thing to like hear that as well, knowing that we are supporting flexible working, because obviously even with our hybrid working model, obviously it's a bit hard for new mothers to reach those points, especially if you're working like depending where you're living as well. So one of the questions is asking, what is your commute to work, and how can we help that? So in that sort of sense, yes, I think we do support our staff in terms of flexible working.
We wanted to ensure that our family-friendly policies, as we call them, which encompasses maternity, paternity, adoption, a fertility policy, which we introduced last year. So all of these are supporting, because many couples, women, men are you know, struggling with the balance of family life and work as well. So that was really key for us. So that enhanced policy, which again was supported, was key to that as well, and the education around that as well. Obviously there's quite a lot we are doing in terms of our ED&I agenda as well, in the general kind of increasing our female population here at HDB. So I know certainly it had stagnated, certainly when I first joined, but even in the last, we're up to 44%, just over 44% of our a female percentage in the business, and that's even in the last 6 months that's increased by 5%. And and then again with our female leaders representation, we know again we can do better, but that's that is increasing as we tackle kind of activities for underrepresentation across the board. So through more balanced recruitment shortlisting, really focusing on our gender pay gap has been very comparable to our market, and really looking at the policies and processes that support it, but more importantly, really reporting at a senior level and at an exec level, so that they are ensuring that we are on track and we're not falling behind when it comes to representation. Obviously a new female GC member is fantastic, and that's been a really positive addition, because
we're taking over
finally.
So I know we've talked a lot about self-care and well-being and culture. One thing that I wanted to ask about is financial well-being, especially for women, because I think that's something that sometimes is overlooked. I know we do a lot of lunch and learns, and I've attended one or two of them.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, and this came up actually with a great discussion at the last Change Network as well, around Wellbeing Network, and in terms of this, because how more education was needed, and particularly for young people, but as you say, females. That there is research that indicates there's around a shortfall of 89,000 for females compared to males when they're approaching retirement. That's quite huge, and often it can be because they've maybe gone part-time through their career, or taken time out to have a family or carer responsibilities more later in life. So that education early on is really key, to make sure women are investing in their own personal finances and future. Really feel that this is a really important subject in terms of general financial wellness across the board, so not just around pensions, but also making sure that individuals are taking advantage of the benefits that we have via our pension provider, and there's calculators to help with financial planning or savings or getting on the property ladder. So all of those things are really key.